You are listening to episode 65 of Back to Here with Sarita, the new Manifesting Paradigm podcast. It's been a little minute since I've had a guest on the show, so I wanted to take a moment to introduce our guest and share a few things that we talked about on this episode. I had the honor of sitting down with CEO of Sunrider International Company. Sunny and I talked about the challenges of balancing motherhood and entrepreneurship, navigating chaos and perfectionism, and the importance of taking care of oneself through all the moving parts of life. For anyone that is a boss mom and is listening, this episode will definitely land for you. And just a little bit of information about our guest before we jump into the episode. Appointed Sunriders International CEO in 2021, Sunny Butler is responsible for spearheading the company's business development strategy and overseeing global operations. She has definitely managed the many moving parts of Sunrider International's operations for over 18 years, from the logistical complexities of convention management to overseeing Sunrider's retail and direct selling businesses, hotel division, and the company's affiliate offices throughout Europe and Asia. She brings her business acumen to bear in her role as CEO with a mission to strengthen Sunrider's position as the original herbal nutrition and beauty company, offering health, holistic wellness, and the opportunity for financial freedom. Sunny earned her Bachelor of Arts in International Studies as a Juris Doctor from Brigham Young University, and she has lived in Utah, Taipei, Virginia, Hong Kong, and Tokyo, and calls Southern California home with her 4 lively children and supportive husband. I really hope you enjoyed this beautiful episode. Let's go ahead and dive in. I'll see you in there. Hey there, I'm Sarita, and you're about to experience the modern approach to well-being where you get to establish the best and most important relationship you will ever have, the one with yourself. I'm on a mission to help you declutter energy and reclaim your power so you can be a magnet to what you desire. If you're looking for the optimal blend of mindset and healing, you're in the right place. My goal in this podcast is to share tools, resources, and practices that will help you along your healing journey. I'm so excited to be here with you today, so welcome to Back to Here with Sarita. Let's get started. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Back to Here with Sarita. Super excited to have you here today. I have an amazing guest. This is Sunny Butler. Actually, Sunny and I got connected through the Modern Day Wife connection group, and she's my 3rd or 4th podcast guest that I've gotten through that particular group. So I'm super happy that I'm a part of that and being one of their podcast networking people. So welcome, Sunny, for being here today on Back to Here with Sarita.
For having me.
Yes. So today we're going to be actually talking about the navigation, the life navigation, the life journey of not only being an entrepreneur, but also being a mother. And I know I've had plenty of mothers on my podcast episodes before, but no one's ever really talked about that. So I'm really excited to have somebody shine some light on the different aspects of our life that can happen when we are kind of juggling multiple things at one time. And they all come so nicely together, and sometimes a little jumbled together as we figure things out. Before we jump into the meat and potatoes of the episode, I always love to ask so people can get from the source, the person, what has brought you to where you are right now, and tell us a little bit about your company and the background of it. I love your story that you shared with me when we first initially connected, and what your company stands for, and then we'll get into the actual part of the episode where we talk about motherhood.
Okay, great. I am one of 5 children, so I'm the middle child, and I think some people are surprised about that, but in our family, we all have very different personalities. And so my parents started Sunrider when I was 2 years old, and we grew up in the business, and my summers were just working at the office, stuffing envelopes, delivering mail. I actually started answering phone calls when I was like 9.
Oh, wow.
Some people were kind of surprised when they get like a kid on the phone, but I always had an adult supervisor. But yeah, it was just fun working for my parents. And as I got older, I went to law school, I came back and I was like, well, I think I do really want to come and join Sunwriter. And my mom made sure to tell me that if I worked for her, I'd have to work 24/7 and answer her calls whenever she needed me. And I said, okay, I can do it. Then I just started my Sunwriter journey formally, but I'd grown up doing product demonstrations, working at all events, doing everything. Our vacations were family half and Sunwriter is the other half. So we were always doing business. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to be in charge at first. I had, like I said, I have four other siblings and we all kind of work together and we are pretty in sync with a lot of things. And when my parents were getting older and thinking about stepping back a little bit, we all decided that I should be the CEO. And so at that point, we went through transition. And so I became the CEO, I think it was formally in 2021. And my siblings all are doing different things. So I have one other sibling who works with me full time. I'm his boss, which is fun. I get to boss him around.
Is he a younger or older
He's
sibling?
younger than me. He's used.
Oh, even more
I
fun.
know. So, no, but we all have a really good relationship. And then my other siblings are on the board of directors. And I have a sibling who's also our chief medical advisor, but he still has his own medical practice. And my parents are also on the board of directors. And so since I've been doing this, going into the motherhood kind of thing, I had my last child, which my mom thought was kind of crazy. She's like, you just got to be CEO. You sure want to have another kid? And I was like, it's now or never. It's either have my fourth kid now or I just am happy with three. So we decided to go for a fourth at that time. And so I've been going through new motherhood as a CEO while having a teenager as well. So that's been fun.
Oh, wow. You've been in the company ever since you said 9 years old. And so the motherhood aspect is really, it sounds like it's really transitioned since you've become a CEO, correct?
Yes, it's
Okay.
yeah.
I can only imagine. Well, thank you for sharing that with me. And I have lots of questions. For people that are mothers, and people that listen to this on the regular, you may know that I personally am not a mom. And I have had the experience. So I empathize with motherhood in a certain dynamic because number one, I grew up with a single mother. And number two, I was in a relationship for almost a decade where my significant other had children. So I stepped into the role of being a stepmom in that way. So, not in the traditional sense, but also I empathize very deeply. So, I'm able to, as much as possible, fit myself in someone else's shoes with their situation. Of course, that doesn't give me the whole experience, but definitely allows me to understand and maybe potentially ask some questions that could support anybody that is in this particular position, right? Which is navigating a project, a passion project, because that's really what it is, for you. It's not just a business, it sounds like, because you speak about it with such passion. It's not just a money making thing, it's your life and it's a baby, it's your creation, or I should say it's your parents' creation that you've taken on and have become your creation as well. So, navigating all that aside with being a mother. So just to confirm, you were a mother of 4 children. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have four. My oldest is 14 and she's a girl, which I'm very thankful for. She's also very empathetic and helps me a lot. Then I have a 9-year-old boy and a 7-year-old boy and a 2-year-old boy. So I have three boys.
Just in the last 10 some years, we've had an influx of things like TikTok and YouTube rising, and just having access to information is so much more prevalent now. One of the things that I have been thinking about is how oftentimes we desire to kind of do things a little bit differently than our parents. And a lot of times that's naturally just because we're more evolved and we're of a different generation and things like that. But I feel like as well, there's so much more conscious awareness now around parenting and being a more mindful parent when it comes to that. And again, this is based on the fact that our parents didn't have access to a lot of information. I just think about my single parent who didn't really have access or knowledge. I mean, she had an awareness of therapy and things like that, but she just didn't really have access
Mhm.
and knowledge to it. So having that to support us in a dynamic isn't as common as it is nowadays, right? So just taking therapy as an example. So just kind of reflect reflecting, and this is a very broad question, but just reflecting on like your way of parenting as well. We'll get into the business aspect, but just as as more of a parent, and especially owning a business, right? What are some things that you've acknowledged and are aware of that you are doing differently than maybe your parents have done?
I think exactly like you said, there are definitely differences. Every generation parents differently, right? But I think one of the major differences is that I'm really aware, like you said, about everything that's going on in like social media, everything that's going on, any dangers there might be. And so I like to get more involved with my kids' lives. I think when my parents were parenting me, it was much more hands off. And I know that's unusual also for Chinese parents. My parents,
Yeah.
Hong Kong and Taiwan. And most parents like that are usually generationally, they would also be much more involved in their kids' lives. But because they were so involved in building our business, they gave us a lot of freedom, right? And they were just like, I trust you. You can do what you want, basically.
That's awesome. I wish I had had that.
You know, so it was really hands off, and they weren't so concerned with grades either. My dad is not a grades person. He's like, you can have creative ideas. You don't have to have straight A's. So I was like, felt that pressure from him. I did feel it from my mom a little bit. She was like, just be on honor roll and you'll be okay. But I think something different is I'm kind of more along with my dad along those lines. When I talk to my kids about grades, I'm like, just try your hardest, because I know every test is different. Everyone tests differently, which is something that we know now, right? We didn't know that before. Everyone learns differently. That's something that we didn't think about before. So if there are ways that I can help accommodate for them or ask the school to help them, I will. And so I advocate a little bit more for them at school, but I don't want to put pressure on them like maybe some other parents of my parents' generation would have. And I mean, I used to look at all the kids of my parents' classmates from college. They're all like, Harvard and Yale. We don't need to have straight A's. We just have to be good students and to learn as much as possible. So I think I kind of got that from my parents, but I am more of an advocate for my kids now. Whereas before, I think that didn't really cross my parents' minds at all.
Right, right. That's an interesting dynamic, and I'm grateful you brought in like the cultural aspect of the thing of that as well, because I personally am Latina, and so there's this more perception of being, yes, really involved in your kids' lives and almost like micromanaging your kids and all the things that they do, and so culture does play an aspect of that. I love that you brought in a different color and flavoring to that with your family, that it wasn't necessarily the standard or like the stereotype. When it comes to running the business aspect, so we'll go into that and then we'll tie it like all together because that's what I love doing. With the business aspect, taking over your parents' company, I'm sure that was it's a huge position to fill, right? Do you feel like there was a resistance, or do you feel like the fresh new ideas, were they open to the potential changes, recommendations that you had? Like what were the things that were going on behind the scenes in relation, because it's a family business, right? How is that meshing all together from parents ownership to you being the CEO now?
It was rough, because this was their baby.
Right.
And, I worked with them for about 15 years before we transitioned. And so I learned from my parents, I know what they want. But like you said, I do things very differently. And so when we were going through the transition process, I think they were a little surprised because they thought I would do things that the way that they were doing it for the last 40 years. And I didn't really, because just different thoughts. And I really wanted to modernize the company a lot. We wanted to get more into technology, have better applications online, better service online, things like that, because I could see that this is where everything is going, right? Everyone wants to shop online. And so a lot of those things, I always say to my siblings, I'm like, remember, if we talk to our parents about anything, they need at least 5 or 6 touch points. So I have to bring things up to them 5 or 6 different times in different contexts. And it's not just me, it's also my siblings. So I always would usually talk to my siblings about ideas first, get their buy-in. And then I'm like, okay, we have to bring this up at least 5 or 6 times with our parents from different perspectives, and then they can understand it better and see if they can buy in as well. So everything just took a little bit of time, but it's all about communication, a lot of talking. I talk to my siblings every week still. It's not like formal board meetings. I just get some questions. I have ideas. I want to float it by them. What do they think? Sometimes they're like, no. And sometimes we flow and we get a ton of stuff done really quick in like half an hour. So I have like a really good relationship with my siblings and we communicate really well. And then after that, I have to communicate with my parents again. So it's like double layers of communication, always talking, talking, talking. But yeah, it was difficult at first. And when I say at first, I mean like the first 2 years. And then after that, they're like, okay, everything's okay. We can step back a little bit. So they step back a little bit, but they always, want to know what's going on. So I always try to tell them everything that's going on. And my dad is one of the best public speakers, like motivational speaker that I've ever heard. And so he speaks to all of our people around the world. So whenever I'm traveling, I tell him, I'm like, I'm going to go to this country. Can you come with me to speak to this meeting? And everyone loves hearing from him. He's just so motivational because, like, he's coming as an immigrant to the United States and having to build your own business without speaking the language very well and still not sounding like a native, right? He has an accent and everything, but he is so funny and he is so engaging, and people love how he built the business because he really built it with his own two hands. And he made all our products, which are natural wellness products, beauty, skincare, all natural. And he just did it by hand, basically. He did it himself with my mom's support. My mom is a medical doctor, so she gave input, but they just really crafted everything. And so they still speak to our audiences and everyone loves it. And I love it because I am not the greatest public speaker. So I just, I'm like, if they can do it, that's great. Yeah.
I love that. What a beautiful combination of the dynamic of somebody that is more the face of the company and like the creative part of it, and then the person that's actually making things like work and stuff. So that's really neat. So I appreciate your honesty in that. And speaking of raw honesty, that's what this podcast is really about. Is really touching on the emotional part. So would love to get into more of the business owner and motherhood aspect. And what are some moments you've had recently where you've just felt like in a place of frustration? Because I want to share with the audience that it's like you can be a powerhouse woman and also have some moments where you're just falling apart completely on the floor, frustrated, like what is happening right now?
There's so many.
Every day. Just kidding.
I actually was just talking to my husband about it. Like, I would say the last month has been crazy. We've had to travel a lot. I had to travel a lot for work since March, and we just got back from a European trip for an incentive for our top leaders. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And I brought my two youngest with me on this trip, and I had to because they're so young, and we usually have a nanny who helps us, and she is like the second mother to my children, but she had to go take care of her family. And so I was like, okay, so she's doing her thing that she needs to do. I'm taking care of my kids while working. And I was just like going a little bit crazy. He stayed in Europe so that he could do family history work, so he could find out more about his ancestors in Greece. And I said, okay. So he was there for an additional 9 days after I got back. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, how do I? So I obviously had to like cancel some stuff. Okay. So I couldn't do everything. My kids are in afternoon activities. I was just like, I can't do everything. I had to just pare down a little bit, cut out a couple of activities, but keep everything else in, like, dental appointments, doctor stuff, but just a lot of stuff. So I was like, there's just only so much I could do. And I know I totally forget things from school too. Sometimes school's like, oh, don't forget this and this for your 2-year-old or for your 7-year-old. And I'm like, I totally forgot. So, but the teachers are great. They have a lot of empathy for me. So they're like, it's okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I think I was just talking to my husband, like, life is just so crazy right now. And we have to plan more travel. And I'm just like, the summer's coming. My kids are out of school and I have to plan their whole summer. I'm like, we haven't done it yet. And he's like, yeah, I know. It's just having to be okay with not having everything together all the time. And so I told my husband, I was like, I really need to find more time for work. I need to find more time to organize. And more time to help take care of myself, because I have this old back injury that flares up whenever I'm stressed. I got it in high school from being a little too competitive with my brother, basically. So I was like, yeah, it flares up every once in a while. I'm like, it's totally flaring up. I know I'm super stressed. I just need to like give me a moment. And so since he's been back, he's like, he takes the kids in the morning. He's like, don't bother mommy. Just let her get like extra half hour of sleep. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I just need just those little moments. I'm like 30 minutes extra sleep, or not having to do everything all the time, because it is like super overwhelming at times, especially if you're doing it by yourself. And being a single parent only for a week, and I know your mother was a single parent, and I can't even imagine. It's so hard. And having all those support people around you really helps. Even just the teachers, they understand. The schools, I talk to them about things. You just have to be really open and communicate with people. I ask friends for help. I'm like, can you please, help me with this? And they're like, yes. So just having other people help is so important, and asking for it is important too, even if you don't want to. Sometimes you just have to. But I'm really grateful for everybody around me and for supporting during the time. But yeah, and also for my husband for, he does a lot of driving too. So I'm like, okay, great. Now I can focus on work more while he's here. So
He's the family chauffeur.
yeah, he is. He takes the kids to lots of places. So yeah, so he tries to alleviate as much stress as possible so that I can work.
That's amazing to have a husband like that. That's so supportive. Not just a husband, but a partner in supporting you with life and navigating the motherhood. And being a business owner is too as well. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. I feel like that's a very common theme with the mothers that I've talked to is this being okay with having to be okay in the midst of the chaos, and being okay that like not everything's going to get done, being okay with things just not being as perfection. No matter who we are, there's so many people that have this perfectionist mentality where like things have to be aesthetically appealing, they have to be perfect, they have to just look the way they are. And then I really think when we get into adulthood, and I'm especially becoming a mother, there definitely that wake up call being like, no, that doesn't exist anymore. Like the perfectionist mentality doesn't play anymore. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. And one of the things that I resonate really deeply with is the whole body definitely signals when things are a little off. Our body has a way of communicating to us. That's the basis of the company that you have. You create products to support people in their wellness journey, right?
Mm.
And I believe from my own personal experience, it would be about 10 some years ago when I was having insomnia. And insomnia was a manifestation of the level of stress that I was having every single day, which was me stepping into being a full time employee, to navigating the new position of being like a stepmother, to being in a relationship, having two teenagers at home. So there was this experience that I was having where I was being so stressed out because I was like trying to cater to them, trying to navigate being in this new relationship, still trying to maintain my regular 9 to 5 job, which was very stressful at the time. Also having a blind dog that needed a lot of attention. And then just like you said at the very end, taking care of yourself, right? We end up doing that last. We end up taking care of ourselves the very last. The source, the person that's creating all the dynamic within the experience, like we're the ones that are taking care of ourselves last. And so for me, how that ended up showing up was insomnia and panic attacks and things like that. So when it comes to like physical ailments, I really, really feel like our body definitely speaks to us. And that's when it's an indicator that it's time to slow down a little bit, right?
Yeah, take a little time to give yourself some TLC. It's just, yeah, I mean, my back is the perfect indicator. Like whenever I'm stressed, I'm like, oh, there it is. Like I can feel it. I can feel my skin gets dry too. The body has so many emotions, and it exhibits stress in very different ways for everybody.
Yes, it does. And what's so beautiful about it is that you have that level of awareness to slow down and take some time for myself. And I truly believe that comes from being able to navigate intuition, being able to be aware of what's happening with the body. Because oftentimes we are disassociated from that, right? We're very much disassociated from what's happening internally, and we ignore stuff or we ignore our symptoms. It happens all the time. And especially in our Western society, we are told to like just stick through, especially as women. I was just talking to somebody the other day about this, where even when we see these commercials on TV for our cycle, right? We're still told like, just suck it up, take a pill, stuff something in there, and just move on with your day, right? And we are forgetting that we actually need time to rest and recover to be able to show up in our best selves. So that leads me to my next question, which I think is because self care is definitely a important part of my life and the life that I bring to this podcast, because I've talked about self care, and self care is a very watered down word. Corporate companies use it constantly, and so it's like been thrown around quite a bit. Self care, self love, and it's just this whole thing. And so for you specifically, Sunny, when it comes to being a mother, being a business owner, being a partner, being a daughter, being a sibling, all these different parts, what is your go to, besides sleep, because you had mentioned that, what is your go to resource for taking care of yourself that's going to, just replenish you from your soul a lot more deep than just keep going, going, going?
I know a lot of people like to eat. I love food. And I think one of the things that really helps me, and my husband thinks it's kind of weird, is I just like to cook. So I think
The-
cooking and I'm preparing food for myself or for my kids, and I'm taking the time to make something nice, not something super rushed, it actually really helps me reset. So that's like really what I do on Sundays is I cook a lot and I cook food for the week. And I just try to, I really just try to make something healthy, make something that's smart for my kids and something that they'll eat the whole week. And that's what I do on Sundays. So a Sunday is really my reset day. I go to church and I just need to take a breath, right? So on Sundays, I don't check emails. I don't do work. I really take Sundays off and I focus on myself, on my family, on God. And I think that helps me every week. It's just a total mental reset, and physically not thinking about work is very good. And I have done that since I was in law school. So in law school, law school is very stressful. And every other day but Sunday, I'd stay into the library until like midnight, working and studying. And on Sundays, nothing. So I would just totally reset on Sunday. Even if I had something due, I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I had to do it before. I just need this day off. Sunday is definitely my reset day. And yeah, I don't work on Sundays.
I love the non negotiable. I think that's one of the things that you learn as you are creating boundaries and learning more about yourself, and this whole journey of life is the non-negotiables in your life. And I love that you have Sunday as a non-negotiable, like no non like family stuff, no non like me time. That's such a beautiful thing. So for you, what's your cooking process? I love hearing that. Do you put on music? Do you listen to an audiobook? Are you like dancing around the kitchen? Are you like in the element? Like what's happening with that?
So there's always music playing somewhere. I watch a movie or I read a book. And people are like, how can you read when you're cooking? I do. I don't know why. I love reading. So I just read books when I do it, or I listen to books, or I watch a movie.
Like I love cooking as well. Not very good at it. I would say I'm getting better, but I love either putting on music or listening to a great audiobook. I'm a big mystery listener. Speaking of boundaries, because that's something that I think is really important. I've learned so much more about, especially as being myself, having a podcast, being a business owner, being a coach, and also just being out there like dating every once in a while sometimes. I've learned so much more about boundaries, learning so much more about having more healthy relationships, not only with myself, because that's where it starts, and then also with like other people. What if you discovered in all the moving parts of your life with being a business owner, being a parent, being all the things around boundaries? If there's anything you want to like highlight in that.
Yeah, I think boundaries are really healthy. And I tell my kids that too. I mean, in their relationships with their friends, I'm like, you just need to remember yourself. And if you don't like the way someone's treating you, then tell them that and take a step back. So for myself, I think I have to, like in my daily schedule, also, not just in relationships, I have to set specific times off for my kids. So I set off, lunch, not lunch, dinner time. So I don't have meetings between 6 to 7 p.m. And that's my dinner time for my kids. I'm like, we don't do anything else. Even if we have a nighttime meeting, a nighttime activity, anything like that, I'm like 6 to 7, we're together. And so that's really our time to catch up. So I think it's really important to have those. And I wish I carved out more time during my day for myself, but I don't. I think that's something I really need to work on. If a relationship doesn't feel good and it's not making you a better person, or you're not feeling like you're yourself, I hope that my daughter learns that too, especially as she gets into more relationships than my sons. I just want them to feel comfortable in themselves and not to have someone pressure them into anything. So setting those boundaries, I think, is super important.
I've been learning so much more about that, and especially with my mother, I've created some boundaries there, which before I had none. I felt really awkward doing it because it was something that was so unnatural for me for so long to not have boundaries for certain parts of my life that really, really clearly needed boundaries. And so when I started implementing boundaries for certain things, the reaction from other people, the reaction from a friend or from a parent, like there's just it was a reaction to what I was doing. And so for them it almost felt like, oh, this is so sudden, like why are you doing this out of the blue? But in reality it was something that was needed for a very long time. It was something that was an accumulation of time and like internal thoughts and things, and finally making the actual decision to implement a boundary, implement something that was going to support me in protecting myself, but not in a way of like protecting myself against that person, but to give myself more self love and self compassion and things like that.
Boundaries with parents is hardest, right?
True, true.
It's so hard because you want to please them.
Yeah.
I totally get it. It's so hard to not with your family members to remember, hey, I need space or we're not going to talk about that.
Right, right. And so I'm sure that's very prevalent in your dynamic because your family is your business and your business is your family. It's really refreshing to hear from you that this kind of thing can work when you have the level of awareness. And from what you're sharing with me, having that awareness of not only the boundaries but also awareness of like knowing that I'm not going to do everything that I need to do today, and that's okay. That's okay to not cross all my T's and dot all my I's, and like the world is not going to come to an end, and like the fire isn't going to burn everything down, right? Like the next day will start. And so it's a refreshing perspective, Sunny, to hear somebody with such a high position being able to navigate, but also being raw and honest about that things aren't necessarily perfect every single day, right?
Yeah, I mean, you just can't expect to be perfect. There's no way. You can't do everything and you definitely need support.
Yes. Oh, yes. And support too. So that's something that I feel like from my own personal experience and the women that I've talked to and supported in my coaching is that we are very accustomed to not asking for support, not asking for help. So how is that one final thought, but how has that helped you or acknowledge that having support has helped you in becoming a better person, in being a mother, a business owner, and all the things, actually having support?
Well, I think a long time ago, I realized that people can't read my mind. So I have
So true.
want. So when I was dating my husband, I realized I was like, well, he really does not understand what I'm thinking, right? Like guys and girls, just very different. So I was like, I need you to do this for me. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll do that. I was like, oh, all I have to do is tell him. So from then on, I was like, if I need something, I'm really going to have to be really explicit because I know people can't read my mind. So I just have to look at my life and just remember you can't do everything. If you need it, you have to ask for it. People cannot read your mind. And if you don't ask for it, then you just have to deal with the consequences. So that's just the way it is for me. And I have a great team at work. I mean, we have really people who are very intuitive, I think, and understand when you're under a lot of pressure or stress, and they all try to help each other out. So it's a big team effort here. I have a great C-suite, people who really look out for each other. And, if anyone's under a special burden, then they're like, I'll help you. Let me help you. So I think they see that with me too. And they're like, I'll help you. Let's rearrange stuff. Let's redo things. So it's just a lot of communication and being very explicit in what you want.
I love that. Having a supportive team is imperative. And then also, as you were mentioning, a supportive spouse. So that's really, really helpful as well to take off the burden, take off, that. And again, kind of going back to what I was saying with the boundaries for somebody that is not accustomed to asking for help can sometimes feel awkward because you're just just not conditioned to ask for help. That was something that seeing a single mother for so long do everything. And there were times she had her parents, my grandparents support a lot, but I didn't really think about it as like actually helping my mom. It was more just, oh, they're just part of the family, as fun. And then as I got older, I realized I was like, wow, they actually did a huge part in helping to raise myself and my sister. And at the same time, very often my mom did not ask for help in certain situations apart from, my grandparents. And so I got conditioned as this woman who thought I could do everything as well. I took on a lot of projects, took on a lot of responsibilities, all the things, and didn't ask for help. And probably that's one of the reasons why I ended up having insomnia for all those years, is because it was like the accumulation of all these things that had been stacked up for so long, with me just not taking the time to assess what it was that I needed and simply asking, hey, can I get support on this? Instead of being the one that took charge and was like, let me plan, let me do this, let me figure this out, let me do all the things.
I think other people, they feel so happy that you asked. Like when you ask for help, they're really grateful because they have an opportunity to serve you, and that makes them into a better person too. So I think just asking for help is a way to serve others because they have the ability to make their lives happier by serving you.
I love that. Yeah, that's so true. And you're right. I've been received every single time I ask as of course, I'll help you. Yeah, I'm grateful that you asked for support from me. So that's so true. Never be too scared to ask for support.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sunny, for this wonderful and reflective conversation that we've had around motherhood and being a business owner. I always like to ask at the very end for somebody that is in this position, or maybe just starting to commence their journey into entrepreneurship, and who is a mom and just having all these anxieties about, starting that. Because I do end up attracting people that are starting a passion project of some sort, and like starting to kind of figure out like, how do I put all these moving parts together into one? What kind of advice or words of wisdom would you give somebody being on kind of a little bit more like ahead on the timeline?
I would say look for mentors or look for people who are in a similar situation where you want to go, and ask them for advice, because every industry is different. Expertise in every industry is very different. So I would definitely ask for advice from lots of different people, but keep your vision really clear. I like to write down kind of like what your goals are. Write it down, what your goal is, your midterm goal, your long-term goal, where you see yourself in like 3 months, which is more short term, where you want to go in 6 months, and make sure you keep your core values alive. So for us, we always try to look at our core values as a company and make sure that we're sticking to it and we're hitting all cylinders at all times with our decisions. And if it doesn't hit something or it doesn't resonate with one of the core values, then to leave it off. So make sure you know what you stand for, what your values are, and where you want to go as a person or as a company. Because if you have a better vision or direction, you're going to get there faster.
So true. That theme has really been popping up for me recently because I've transitioned into a full 100% nomadic lifestyle. That's just happened within the last couple weeks. So my life is literally turned on its head. I put most of my stuff in storage, put the rest in my car, and I'm just living nomadically. And so this theme of like, what do I stand for, has really been coming forth recently. So thank you so much for reminding me of that, because that's really important as you go into a new endeavor, is just being very clear, like, what is it that is important to me? And I love that you have core values in your business. And I do as well, because it's something that is a part of who I am, an extension of who I am, my business is. So, I love those pieces of advice that you just gave. And thank you so much, Sunny. It's been, like I said, it's been really wonderful connecting with you. And I really, really appreciate the refreshing perspective that you bring to the table. So yes, you're so welcome. Take care, everybody. And we will see you next time. And as always, keep being the amazing you that you are. Take care. Hey, love. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you adored what you heard, it would mean the world to me if you took a moment to leave a review on the platform you are listening to this episode on. By doing this, you are helping my mission to impact other women with their healing journeys. If you aren't already following me on social media, make sure to connect with me at Sarita Wellness to get your weekly dose of inspiration. I can't wait to be with you in the next episode, but in the meantime, Keep being the amazing you that you are.